Welcome back, everyone. Today, I thought I would do a bit of a recap type video in terms of there's a lot of stocks that I have now talked about over the past year, either in the stocks I'm buying videos or something that I mentioned a few times that I owned, something like that. So today, I thought I would do an update and talk about where those positions stand, a whole bunch of them. So as I said, I'm going to try and quickly run through a whole bunch of positions and not try, I'm going to try not to focus too much on any one thing. I'll probably fail on that, but that's just my plan as of now. And again, I tried to balance the categories and how I talk about these, but mathematically, if if investing works, mathematically the winners overpower the losers. However, mentally, I know it works in the opposite, at least it often does for me. I focus a whole lot more on the losers than the winners, something I'm trying to work through, but um, learning from the losses is just as important as taking profits on the winners. And so, as always, none of this is investment advice. I hope you enjoy. Well, I couldn't decide if I was going to do up positions or down positions first, so I flipped a toonie and it landed on a bear. So, well, that's all you need to know. So let's start with an old one that has not gone the way I hoped. Plateau. Now, if we're being honest, this position has been more frustrating than anything in the uranium thesis as a whole. Fundamentally, I find great with how that's going. This position, though, has not been ideal. Um, Problems kind of popping up after the stock falls, never fun. There's just so much potential here still. So that's why I continue. I say this bag holding. Someone else mentioned that to me. And in this case, I find it fitting because this trades at like 1% of NAV, meaning if they got to their NAV, it would be 100 bagger. Now, will they? Obviously, the market's saying no. But I think that if a few things start going in their direction, this thing could be significantly higher and look significantly more closer to achieving their potential. But for now, this has been painful. This is another one. Lucara has not been as hoped. Diamonds, I got in a bit early. I botched the cycle. I thought this company had something that would counteract the final potential for a bottom to be made in the cycle. I was wrong, and it went lower. And then just as I was pretty sure was seeing a recovery in diamonds, well, that was just late last year, heading into this year. Obviously, not the greatest time. At this point, I'm still bullish. I think that at this point, it's possible, maybe probable, that this will be a loser in the end, and I'm down a lot on this position. Luckily, I've added a little bit as it's gone down, but I should probably buy more right now because I'm pretty bullish, and I think we're seeing a recovery, and Argyle is shutting down, so that should be supportive. This position may end up break even, maybe a loss, maybe a gain. I don't know, but from here, I'm still bullish. Arc Resources. This is another one that I bought because I thought, wow, look how much bearishness is being priced in. And then we got a whole new definition of bearishness early this year. And so this one, I still am pretty sure is going to be a winner. Well, pretty sure. I mean, I think it has a good chance of being a winner at some point. It's absurdly cheap, and the cycle has to, the pricing cycle is something that should move up significantly from here. So I'm not really concerned about this. It was a small position. It still is a small position because I don't know how the if governments are going to do something stupid because they don't know the difference between met coal and thermal coal. But whatever the case, I'm not that concerned about this one, and I'm still bullish here. Okay, lastly for today on the down positions is DHT. So tankers. That didn't go great, and I feel like it's partially my fault for not getting out of this. Not my fault that tankers didn't grow great, but I thought that there was a chance, and I thought that the stocks were really cheap and could bridge the gap of uncertainty. But I also knew that I had no idea what was going to happen after or as the inventory drawdown in oil was worked down. So in the end, after dividends, this particular stock isn't down that much. It's still down, and I still felt like addressing it. I think that well, tankers should recover. They should recover if you look at the time, and there's different. Um, I mean, I think still think clean tankers have ways on the upside. Just I don't know if it's this year, next year, when. Well, I mean, this year's almost over, but you know what I mean. So I'm still holding for that reason because I think there will be a recovery. Now for up positions. So one thing I want to point out here quickly is that these are positions that I'm up in and am still in. And I'm pretty bullish on a number of them still, but I wanted to clarify that I'm up while I didn't want to explain exactly how much I'm up because I don't want to sound braggy, but just for the with the idea of disclosure, these are positions that I'm still bullish on, but I am up on the position. Linamar. First, Linamar. That was a great quarter. That was a great quarter from them that they announced just the other day. I on Twitter, I mentioned that, wow, that was great. Better than I expected. It is better than I expected. And so I'm still holding, still very bullish on this, and I'm increasing my well, my price target, I guess you could say, because I had imagined that they would get to this point, but I had imagined they'd get to this point significantly later than they did. And so they have been outperforming my expectations, and I still believe this is a great company. And like I said, raising the price target, things are going well here. Next, Stelco. So when I first talked about Stelco, it was in the middle of all the chaos, and the price at that point was insanity. Now, when I mentioned to you that I had bought some Stelco recently, it was still very, very cheap. My opinion, obviously. But it has moved up a bit since then. And why did it move up? Well, because the fundamentals have improved. The steel price has moved well off of the lows, and it's back closer to a range of the mid-cycle. Now, um, based on if steel price were at its mid-cycle, I think the stock is still cheap. Now they have to show what their costs will be, and they have to show how much of the EBITDA they could turn into actual earnings, um, because of a number of factors, a number of new things going on with the company. But this stock, when you look at their price to like EV to EBITDA, it's still very cheap, very, very cheap, even though it has moved up a lot because the steel price, again, has moved up a lot. So maybe the market isn't believing that the steel price will stay here. I don't know. But I'm still, it's low, it's a low risk for permanent loss here because they should be very low on the cost curve, meaning that even if the steel price were to tank because of whatever reason, there's not really a super high risk of permanent capital loss. So that's why I continue to hold and feel fine holding, even though it has moved up. Next, Methanex. I kind of mentioned this once in passing in a stocks I'm buying video and never really focused too much on it since. That's because it's not a huge position, and I hope that no one thought that I was talking about how great it was because it was a huge position and feels well, I hope no one just blindly follows me into anything, but I hope that no one feels down if they did, because I mean, I think this has been a fairly decent performer and I mean, has gone fairly well so far. The thing about this one is I bought a speculative position because while it is risky, there is a lot of upside potential. So most of the from here to there involves holding and doing nothing. So they should be back to profitable, full on profitable soon. And then there's lots of leverage to deal with the recovery in energy prices. And I mean, this is a form of energy, so they are linked to energy prices. So it's a hold for now, and it still can go significantly higher, I think. Next, Trevally. Now, I mentioned this a few months ago as ridiculously cheap and a ridiculously lot of leverage, and nothing's really changed. Um, this is a company where if the zinc price stays here or goes higher, and it has gone higher since I've thought that it might, but realistically, this pick has underperformed the thesis. It was a bad pick based on that thesis, I guess you could say, because it hasn't performed as well as the leverage should have. And for that reason, I'm still thinking that wow, this is still really cheap. If zinc price stays at a buck 20 for a year, then I mean they their EBITDA amounts to basically their current share price, 15.5 cents approximately, if the zinc price stays here. This is excluding hedges or whatever events. But the point is, as it stays here or as they pay off some of the debt, the risk goes down and the stock gets really cheap at the same time. Now, obviously, if I were to become a zinc bear or didn't like zinc anymore, um, I'd leave, but I'm cautiously bullish on zinc still, fairly cautiously. I mean, I'm more so thinking that this is a fair price for zinc rather than the price needs to go much higher. But the stock is just really cheap, and in the meantime, treatment charges look like they're falling, so that should be more margin for the company. And like, I don't want to be a raging zinc bull, but these zinc stocks are all bears, I guess. Now, I just want to mention also a few flattish positions that I've been in for a while and maybe up or down a little bit, but really haven't moved based on what I'm hoping they will be at some point. Okay, so Verde Agritech. I've mentioned this a while ago, and then I mentioned again recently that I was buying more. We'll have to see if it succeeds. If it succeeds, then the day-to-day fluctuations that we see don't really matter. If it fails, then, well, I guess they don't matter in the other way. But I'm much closer to buying much more than thinking about selling at this point. This is another one that is slightly up, Global Atomics. I've spoken about it a lot, made multiple videos and written multiple things on it. Realistically, yeah, it may be up a little bit versus where I was buying before, but I've bought more higher and I bought more. I just keep buying a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Why? Well, because as I said, the uranium thesis gets better by the day. The risk on this one gets lower by the day because they pay off some of the debt via their zinc op and then are more and more able to fund the construction out of, well, their current cash flows. So this is a company, risk constantly gets lower. So in theory, the value of this one should slowly be creeping up. And at the same time, the uranium thesis, as I said, the eventual price eventually creeping up. So it's really a lower moment to moment funding stress way of playing, and I'm still keep buying. So the other thing, and really the point that I had intended to do when I made this video, is to talk about some of the positions that I have closed. One of which is West Fraser Timber. Nothing wrong with the stock. Absolutely nothing wrong with the stock. I don't think I'm not bearish at all. It was a nice win. Moving on. It wasn't my highest conviction trade. It wasn't my um, favorite position. It wasn't a large position. So you know what? I still think the stock hits 90. I thought the second quarter of the one-off on super high prices, it was less than I hoped. And you know what? The commodity seems to be rebalancing the price. And one of the things that has it as higher prices than historically is that costs almost across the board are higher, which also means less margin. Now, like I said, still think it's going to 90. Don't hate it at all. The risk was just brought way down by that spike in the great quarter, and now it's just working that off. And there's not much risk in either direction. And I had some better ideas, and so I moved the money out. Okay, so we talk about a win that's final, now a loss that it may not be final, but I'll explain. I screwed this one up. I thought like I mentioned before with the DHT, I thought that the supply overhang would support prices until we transitioned into the next up cycle or seasonal swing. I thought that prices being up year over year would be supportive to the equity and that they were making plenty of money in routine in between, and that should support the equity price. I thought the insiders playing around with call options, and this is relevant in what I'm about to say next. I thought that the insiders playing around with call options would be a nice bullish sign. I thought wrong. And why I say it's relevant is because insiders were playing with call options. I decided to play with call options. I didn't exit gracefully. This call options went from heroes to zeros. Fortunately, I played this terribly, but fortunately, using call options, it wasn't an immensely sized position because this is a permanent loss. Now, like I said before, I still do think that they're going to recover, and so it wouldn't surprise me if I were to re-enter the position, maybe this time using equity, maybe call options. I don't know. I don't know if I hate myself that much anymore. But yeah, so this sucked. Tassico. Now, this is little copper company that could, I guess. This is the perfect example of why often there's no right answers in markets, in trading, investing, whatever you want to call it. Before the market completely fell apart, but when things were starting to look a bit iffy, one of the things I mentioned, and I mentioned this in videos you can look back and see, is that I was reducing risk. I was taking off some risk. I was downshifting risk. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was a bit scary. So one of the things I did, I sold this, and I sold it at a very slight profit. Let's assume it's break even. I don't remember the exact price. I'd have to look it up. But I was out. Then it fell a lot, along with, well, everything because the market was falling. Now, I bought this before because I thought it looked like I said with the diamonds, it looked like we were about to head into a recovery. That went in the opposite direction, obviously. And so I took it off, fell a lot. So I thought, oh, I was right. But I got focused on a few other things and was looking at some other things. And now it's much higher than where I sold it. So was I right? No, yes, I don't know. But point is, I'm out of this one, never got back in. That was a mistake. But so overall, I'm just not in it at the moment. May re-enter copper. There's a few copper names that look really interesting and longer term, still copperable. It's just that's how it goes. Now for a neutral one, Minko Silver. This was a mistake. It was a mistake because well, I bought some when it was virtually free, playing a thesis, playing a speculative free thesis, and I don't like playing that type of thesis. Now, that being said, it was virtually free. And then it became, no, we will literally pay you to take this stock. And so at that point, I did buy more. It was trading at half of cash. At that point, I realized what I had done before was probably a mistake. Um, but at half of cash, I figured, well, this is probably worth at least cash. And so when it got there, I exited and basically flat on this one because of buying in tranches. The lower tranche made money. The higher tranche was approximately flat. Maybe I lost a little bit, but overall net approximately zero. And it wasn't a huge position either way. So um, I'm out of this one. Okay, so this isn't technically a closed position. And that's why there's so many asterisks, whatever, there. In that I took off the risk in the gold trade. And I mentioned this a few times, but I just want to be very clear about how I did it. When the stocks, when I was buying the stocks, they were at, let's call it $5. Well, if they went to 10, I'd take off 5. If they went to 15, I'd take off either 5 or 7.5, and depending on the stock, or 10. So I still have an initial amount of investment money here. However, the risk was taken off, and so it's mainly the house's money. Now, why did I do that? Gold seemed a bit extended on the upside, near term at least. I still think it will hit new highs, and I'm fairly confident about that. When, I don't know. Um, but there were some other things that I preferred, and that's what I said when I took the risk off, and I just want to reiterate that now. That is a very semi-closed trade. The other thing that is not really a closed trade, but is a shift that I wanted to mention, and that is some uranium names. Not at all about the conviction in the uranium thesis, not even necessarily about me not liking the names. So this is why it becomes hard for me to explain this. Sometimes I, I just shifted money from one name to another because, I don't know, something annoyed me about what the company was doing, or they failed to meet a goal, or things were just going slower than I would have liked, or maybe they had a raise at a lower price and then they came back up. So it was just, it's not that I dislike it, any of the names that I did this to. I just preferred other ones, and I owned them before for diversification, and decided that I preferred having more of certain other names. And I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. This is the difficult type of thing. And the names of the companies that I did switch out of, one was GoviX. Again, I just preferred Global Atomic at the time, so I just swapped over. I don't hate GoviX. And the other one was Denison. Um, some of the financing things bugged me. Again, I still think it will be a successful uranium company. It is one of the best assets. It's just they had financed a few times at prices or terms that diluted the eventual upside. Not unique to them. That's not at all unique to them. It's just a few things that bugged me, and the progress wasn't at the pace that I was hoping for. Again, I still think both of those names that I can think of at least will be successful. I think they will. So I don't at all want to come off as saying I don't like them, because they're fine. I just made a decision, and part gut, part logic, and it's just what happened. I think that's just about all I wanted to cover for today, and I certainly hope you enjoyed, and I'm sure that I missed or forgot some, and because I have talked about a lot of stocks, but these are the positions that I have or had, and talked about and can remember, and I'm mentioning here, the ones I wanted to give an update on. With that said, I am very curious which positions, either in this video or that I mentioned fairly recently, or that you think I'm in or that I am in, do you like most? And which, the contrarian in me wants to know, do you like the least, or are you most concerned about, or you think I'm wrong? That's, I mean, both very interesting. And I have to say that over the time that I've had this channel, over the comment section, I've read a lot of very thoughtful, um, both critique and additional points, bullish points for some of the things I've mentioned. So I'm really interested in your input, and thank you in advance for that. And thank you going back for that. And I hope to see some in the comment section. And with that, until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.